So, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky just honored a veteran from Hitler's army during World War II and the Holocaust. Let's take a look.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98. His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
This gentleman was part of the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division, which was part of the Nazi army fighting against Russia's Red Army under the command of Hitler. So we see here these guys are honoring them, and now people are making excuses trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying they didn't know. But I'm not giving them any type of benefit of the doubt. They know exactly what they're doing because they're all Nazis. This is the Bicycle Podcast. So we're going to answer the question, are there Nazis in Ukraine? We're going to look into who the hell is Stepan Bandera and why is he relevant today. But first, we're going to dig deeper into the story on Canada because they've just embarrassed themselves. I think that this thing was completely intentional. They always vet these people. When somebody's going to be around the Prime Minister, the House of Commons, whatever it's called up there, the Parliament, just like if there's a State of the Union address, when the president points somebody out, they always vet these people. You know exactly who you're bringing in your presence to single out because people will quickly look into who this person is. But we have Justin Trudeau trying to say, oh, he didn't know anything about it. The guy was brought there by Anthony Rota, who's the Liberal Speaker of the House, Justin Trudeau's right hand in the Parliament. So let's see exactly what's going on. Let's look at the story here from NBC. Canadian House Speaker steps down after honoring man who fought for Nazis. Anthony Rota, the leader of the Canadian House of Commons, resigned Tuesday after he unknowingly honored a man who fought for the Nazis in World War II. So when you read these articles from NBC, CBS, all these biased media outlets, you gotta kind of read between the lines. Take some things with a grain of salt, like they say unknowingly, because this is a little subtle word they throw in here to try to deceive people. He knew what the hell he was doing. Rota removed himself from the powerful post of House Speaker with a brief statement to fellow lawmakers on the Parliament Hill in Ottawa. It is with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons, he said. So he basically offered himself up as a sacrifice because these guys, these liberals in Canada, these liberals in the United States are Nazis. Look at how they could try to control people. Look at how they censor speech. Look at how they conduct violence. They use Antifa and these BLM idiots as their enforcement arm. They use sites like Facebook, Instagram, and formerly Twitter as enforcements for their liberal regime, for their liberal ideology. So when you try to say something that goes against the liberal regime, against their ideology, against their religion, then you can be censored. And in some cases, they'll send a mob after you, BLM and Antifa, to conduct violence on you. Like they did, I think there was a college swimmer down there in Florida who went against that giant man in a NCAA swim tournament. But I'm pretty surprised because this is something that you don't see in the United States. These guys do all kinds of vile things, but they never resign. Like we got the senator right now being busted for bribes. He's not going to resign. They're going to have to force him out. They're going to offer him immunity from prosecution. That's the only way they'll get him to resign. But Rota, he's embarrassed, but not because they brought a Nazi to the parliament, but because the reaction to this whole thing. They are under the impression that the liberals completely conquered North America so they can do what they want. They didn't expect this level of pushback because their opposition is still strong. It's still alive and strong, much stronger than what they thought. So they thought they can bring a Hitler Nazi to the Canadian Parliament and everything will be okay. Because in a lot of cases, when they do these vile things, like when they trans children, conduct child abuse, when they censor people, when they force people to get injections of some type of fluid cooked up by Big Pharma, their liberals completely supported them. When they forced people to wear a dirty cloth on their face, they didn't have to do anything because the liberals, their sheep, their puppets that they manipulate, the masses, they enforce it for them. You have all these mass police out there. So he brought this Nazi in thinking that he would get a little resistance, but mostly support from their liberal sheep. But it didn't go the way he planned, so now he's sacrificed. He's gone from his post. The work of this house is above any of us, therefore I must step down as your speaker. Canadian lawmakers on Friday honored Yaroslav Hunka, 98, who fought for Ukraine's independence during World War II. People need a history lesson, but I'm not going to get too deep into that right now because we're going to get into it later when we talk about Stepan Bandera and Ukraine's Nazi history. It later emerged that Hunka, who was given a standing ovation in the presence of visiting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, had in fact fought for a part of a notorious Nazi unit, the 1st Ukrainian Division. These people are idiots. Just because Ukraine is fighting Russia now means that a guy who fought against Russia 80 years ago should be honored. Some of these sheep who should know their history would know that Russia and the United States were allies against the Nazis in World War II. And the Ukrainians, who were part of the Soviet Union, wanted to break away from Russia, so they allied themselves to the Germans. And they fought against Russia under the rule of the Nazis. So this guy was a full-blown Nazi. In an apology Sunday, Rhoda said he subsequently became aware of more information about Hunka's past. Rhoda specifically apologized to Jewish communities in Canada and around the world and to Polish citizens. Yeah, so this guy is saying, oh, I'm sorry to the Jewish people. I'm sorry to the Poles, because these Ukrainian Nazis killed millions of Poles and Jewish people. They, in fact, 25% of all Holocaust victims were killed by Ukrainian Nazis. People think it was just Germany, but no, it was Germany ruling other people, including the Ukrainians. Some Ukrainian nationalists fought in World War II against the Nazis, battling Polish underground forces and assisting Germans in capturing Jewish people and furtherance of genocide. Ukrainian collaborators fought alongside the Nazis to crush the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the Warsaw Uprising. Ukrainian collaborators are also blamed for massacring thousands of Poles during the war. And some Ukrainians were death camp guards, including the American auto worker John Demjanjuk, who was convicted of 28,060 counts of being an accessory to murder before he died in 2012 at the age of 91 while his case was being appealed. I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during a joint address to the Parliament of President Zelensky, Rhoda said. The public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including Jewish communities in Canada. See, they keep saying Jewish, but a lot of these leftists are anti-Semitic. Look at Ilhan Omar. She comes out and publicly says all these anti-Semitic things, and the left defends her. But they'll be quick to try to smear a Republican, not because they give a damn about Jews, but because they just want to use it as a cudgel to attack the right. In addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations, he said, Rhoda's resignation will become officially at the end of the day, Wednesday. Okay, good riddance. I accept full responsibility for my actions, he said. Government Liberal House leader Karina Gul, who is Jewish and a descendant of a Holocaust survivor, welcomed the resignation. This is something that has brought shame and embarrassment to all of Parliament and indeed all Canadians, Gul said. The Speaker did the honorable thing and resigned. Rhoda's resignation could take some heat off Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Oh, it definitely did, because Justin Trudeau, we're going to look at this clip real quick. Justin Trudeau threw Rhoda under the bus, and he basically tried to make himself blameless. Like, I didn't know anything. It was completely his fault. This is a terrible thing. He was in on it because this guy is a full-blown Nazi, man. Look at how he did his citizens during the shutdown. Look at what they had to do, the measures they had to take to get some type of freedom. This man shut down their bank accounts to stop them from protesting against them. There's a guy who, I think he was some type of religious leader, a pastor or something. He gave a speech, and he's just been sentenced to prison for giving a speech during this whole COVID-19 protest, because they said, well, your speech inspired people to keep protesting, therefore you need to go to prison. This is Justin Trudeau's regime, but he wants to act all blameless. Let's take a look at this clip of him.
It's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it. Je pense que c'est clair que c'est inacceptable que ce soit passé.
What happened? The Speaker of the House, he apologized, he was responsible, but goes without saying that it is profoundly embarrassing for Canada's Parliament, and by extension for all Canadians. I'm thinking specifically of the Jewish parliamentarians, but also the whole of the Jewish community throughout the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. The important thing here is we'll continue staying firm against Russia and the propaganda and Russian disinformation, all the while staying steadfastly supportive of Ukraine in this illegal war, like we announced with different measures yesterday.
So, Russian propaganda, Canada, and Zelensky choose to give a standing ovation to a World War II Holocaust Nazi, and it's Russia's fault? How the hell does that work? Unbelievable, man. Complete. Yeah. Trudeau and his Liberal speakers have brought shame on Canada. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said in a statement Tuesday before Rhoda's announcement, the Liberal speaker will have to resign, but that does not excuse Justin Trudeau's failure to have his massive diplomatic and intelligence apparatus vet and prevent honoring a Nazi. Well, here's the thing. They vetted him. They knew he was a Nazi. They just didn't care because they're on his side. These conservatives are too damn naive about how far these liberals have fallen. The gaffe has also become a propaganda boom for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has peddled flimsy accusations of Nazi elements within modern Ukraine to justify Russia's invasion. This whole thing is an absolute lie because they're not flimsy accusations. These are absolute facts. A large swath, a massive population of the Ukrainians are Nazis. But the United States and the West want to deny it because they have larger interests here. So they want to fight against Russia. They want to weaken Russia, probably split Russia up and take parts of it, take its resources. So they'll side with some Nazis in order to achieve what they believe is a larger goal. Putin has said he seeks the denazification of Ukraine, a particularly audacious claim considering that Zelensky is Jewish and lost 3 family members in the Holocaust. Okay, so we're going to dig into this right here, what they just said about Zelensky. So Zelensky is from a Soviet Jewish family who lived in southern Ukraine and Kazakhstan back in the day, decades ago. And these Soviet Jews were typically secular Jews. They're not the practicing Jews who conduct all the religious activities. They're just Jews by heritage. Think of a guy like Bernie Sanders, for example. He's a Jew, but he's a secular Jew. He's not a practicing Jew. And just look at his ideology. It will show you that Judaism has nothing to do with his worldview. That's just a smaller part of his life. And Zelensky is the same way. But the media and the United States choose to do this to try to say they're not Nazis here. Look, the president is Jewish. That means no Nazis exist in Ukraine. Just because they're a Jew doesn't mean they're all on the same side. During World War II, it is an absolute fact that a lot of Jews fought for Hitler. During the Holocaust, a lot of Jews decided to round up their own people and kill them. Like that famous one, what was his name? I think it was Vatel Hunson. He literally rounded up people in his hometown, his Jewish hometown, rounded them up and sent them off to death camps. And many Jews, they did this, one, because they were trying to be safe. And if they became stooges to the Nazis or became Nazis themselves, they believed that they wouldn't get murdered. But then some of them, they didn't really care because this Nazi ideology was bigger than their Jewish heritage. So there was one Jew who said, I'm German first and Jewish second. When Hitler decided to do what he did, when the Nazis did what they did, some of these Jews were on the side of the Nazis because, yeah, I'm a Jew. My family history says I'm Jewish, but I'm more for this ideology. And when you look at somebody like Zelensky, his army, like the Azov Battalion and others, filled with Nazis. A large portion of his voter base in Kyiv, in Lviv, in Western Ukraine. Whole lot of Nazis out there that he has to appeal to. But we can dig deeper into this about Zelensky's specific history, or the Jews who fought for Hitler, the Jews who engaged in the Holocaust. But that's a different video. So we're going to continue and talk about present day Ukraine. Are there Nazis in Ukraine? We're going to talk about that in a second. But first, a word from our sponsor, me, the Bicycle Merch Store. As we discuss today's topics, remember that your values and your ideas can be expressed by the things that you wear. Check it out, thoughtfully curated merchandise celebrating traditional values and government restraint. Explore our unique collection, starting with the Supreme Style tinfoil hat, a statement piece that embodies our commitment to critical thinking and pushing back against the norm. Make a statement with the Free Trump shirt, boldly displaying the captivating mugshot of the former president, which instantly became the most famous picture in the world. At the Bicycle Merch Store, we're more than just products. We're a community dedicated to celebrating and defending traditional values. Sign up for promotions and receive 10% off your very first order. Don't miss out on these exceptional items. Embrace tradition, champion freedom, and shop now at tvsmerch.com. So Vladimir Putin said that one of his main objectives in this Ukraine invasion was the denazification of Ukraine. And everyone immediately came out and bashed Putin. They said, what the hell are you talking about? You're making stuff up. There are no such things as Nazis anymore. The only Nazis are the ones that we bash in the United States, the white supremacists, but European Nazis were defeated back in World War II. They don't exist. Stop making stuff up. But the West was lying. Everyone knew prior to February 2022, everybody knew that Ukraine was filled with Nazis. No one was saying, oh, the president is Jewish. That means that there's no Nazis there. Nobody was saying that lie. Look at this footage here of a drone that the Russians captured. So when they come out with that, some people try to debunk it, but there's been so much. There have been tanks, there have been drones, there have been other material, helmets and stuff, other material with Nazi logos on it. You have the Wolf Angel logo or the swastika from the Ukrainian army, from the American-funded Ukrainian army. But here's the thing about this. This debunking only goes so far. It only works on stooges and sheep, people who are too naive and just believe everything they hear on American TV. Congress knew that Ukraine had a Nazi problem. Let's look at this. So Congress is saying, we're going to send money. We're going to give you money, but you can't use the money to fund these Nazis. I thought there were no such thing as Nazis in Ukraine. So which one is it? NATO knew that there were Nazis in Ukraine. Let's look at this. So we got guys out here walking around freely with swastikas on their uniforms, on their helmets. They have patches. And when the American media, CBS or somebody go over there, CNN or somebody, they tell these people to remove the Nazi images so they can take the picture. Oh, look at these brave Ukrainians. We're not going to tell you that 10 minutes ago they were just wearing swastikas and Wolf Angel logos. We're not going to say that. We're just going to say, look at these brave Ukrainians. So it's all a ruse, all a lie. But when you start digging deeper, you're going to find out that everybody knew that Ukraine had a Nazi problem. Let's look at this. So I'm going to read this quote here from a Ukrainian politician from back in 2019. The swastika is a very strong symbol, and as soon as we adopted it, we immediately grew popular among young people. Those who join us know exactly what they want and they're ready to go to the very end. Ukrainian politician public statement about using swastikas, about putting it on a wall, about putting it on military equipment, about waving flags of it. But all of a sudden, since Russia bad, Ukraine is the greatest place in the history of the universe, I guess there's no Nazi problems. But here's the thing about that. They know it's a Nazi problem, but like I was saying earlier with Justin Trudeau, they are Nazis themselves, so they agree with this stuff. The United States is totally okay with Ukraine being filled with Nazis. They're totally okay with funding Nazis, with sending tanks over there, like when the Leopard 2 tank was sent over there from Germany, when the United States forced Germany to give up their Leopard 2 tank. The Ukrainian army put Hitler logos on the German tanks and attack the Russians with it. United States knows this. Germany knows this. But the media continues to lie to American people about it. There's no such things. The president is Jewish. Filled with lies, man. Then they had a graduation ceremony over there in England. I'm not totally sure about this one, but a lot of officers, Ukrainian officers, graduated. And I couldn't find a translation, but apparently a lot of people are saying that they were praising Stepan Bandera and Nazi stuff in that song, but I'm not sure. And this Nazi problem has been around for a while. This is why I'm saying the United States is okay with it, because when the Cold War started, the United States knew during World War II that these Ukrainian Nazis were trying to get free from the Soviets. So they were fighting for Hitler against the Soviets. So the United States said, you know what? We can use this. We can continue to use these Nazis over here in Ukraine. So the CIA for decades, during the Cold War, the CIA was funding Nazi militias in Ukraine to fight against the Soviets. You had a lot of these guys, after the whole thing was over with, Poland and other Eastern European countries were rounding these guys up. It's time to serve prison or death sentences for these crimes against humanity y'all committed. But United States and Canada, now we're going to go back to the Justin Trudeau situation. They brought them over. So a lot of these former Nazis in Eastern Europe who fought for Hitler, these Ukrainian Nazis, were sent to Canada to escape prosecution in Eastern Europe. And the purpose of saving them was to use them as a weapon against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. That's why we had that 98-year-old veteran in Canada, because Canada was a decades-long safe haven for Ukrainian Nazis. That 98-year-old is one of many. Most of them have probably died off by now, but there were thousands of them using Canada as a safe haven. And now we got Poland inquiring about this 98-year-old, talking about they want him extradited for prosecution. Man, Poland is full of it, because Poland knew this whole time that Canada was giving asylum to these Ukrainian Nazis, but now they want him extradited. But everybody knew. It wasn't some secret. It wasn't like on the Avengers where they had Hydra. I don't know if y'all guys saw that, but Hydra was a secret organization that Captain America thought he got rid of in World War II. And turns out that they've been around in secret the entire time. No, these Nazis been around. Some people thought that they got rid of them in World War II, but they've been around openly. And we're going to get into some more images when we talk about Stepan Bandera, but they've been around openly this whole time. Since World War II, through the Cold War, present day, in a fight against the Russians right now, the Ukrainians are wearing Nazi logos. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about the Azov Battalion, infamously known as the Nazi group that somehow, some way became perfect citizens and gracious men when they were integrated into the Ukrainian army last year. Everybody knew that these guys were Nazis. Like I just showed you the headline, the United States said, look, don't use our money to fund them. That was back in 2017, 2016, something like that. Now, the United States is totally okay with funding them. Facebook, with their hate speech policies, they used to classify the Azov Battalion along with the KKK. So they banned anybody associated with the Azov Battalion from Facebook. Anybody who gave praises, shout outs to them, your account would be banned until last year. So when Russia invaded Ukraine, Facebook said, you know what? The Azov Battalion were evil scum, but now they're good guys. So they unblocked them. They unbanned them. Now You can say Hell Azov Battalion, all that bull on Facebook. Because the United States has a larger goal. They know that this place is filled with Nazis, but destroying Russia, hoping to try to inflict harm on Russia, extract resources from Russia, and maintain their dominance in the world is a larger goal for the United States, even though it's not working. But it's a larger goal for the United States than worrying about Ukrainian Nazis. I'm going to give you another quote from the first commander of the Azov Battalion, because some people are in denial about what the Azov Battalion is because CNN has told them different. So let me read this quote here. In 2010, Andrew Bileski, the first commander of the Azov Battalion, and also a former parliamentarian, a Ukrainian politician, said Ukraine is meant to lead the white races of the world in a final crusade against Semite-led, Ukrainian word, translates to subhumans. Ukraine is meant to lead the white races of the world in a final crusade against the Semite-led subhumans. A Ukrainian politician, former politician turned first commander of the Azov Battalion. But there are no Nazis in Ukraine. This is public information. These guys are saying it's public. There's no underground secret room where they're saying all this stuff in the middle of the night. But people love to be misled because you turn on these same liars, these same lying sacks of shit in the Western media who lied to us for 3 years about a disease with a 99.7% survival rate. Fearmongered and lied to us about that, but now you sit here and believe everything they say about Nazis in Ukraine? They are lying. Dig deeper. I keep telling people to dig deeper. Okay, so now we're going to take a look into Stepan Bandera. Who the hell is Stepan Bandera? Stepan Bandera, to some people, is a Ukrainian hero, but to most people, he's known as a stooge for Hitler because he wanted Ukrainian freedom from the Soviet Union back in the 30s, back in the 40s. So when Germany invaded the Soviet Union, they knew that they could use him because he was already in trouble with Poland for committing acts of terror, and he was in trouble with the Soviet Union. He was about to go to jail in Poland, but Hitler them invaded Poland, took that over, and they managed to free him from custody. And they said, you know what, we're not going to kill you. We're going to use you as a stooge. So he led a massive group of individuals to fight against the Russians. He served under Nazi command, and he killed millions, over 1.5 million Jews, hundreds of thousands of Poles. Because remember, he was on the side of Germany. Germany had just conquered Poland, but there was still resistance there. So Stepan Bandera led his group to attack the Poles, the ones who were resisting, kill them, round up Jews in the Soviet Union, in what's currently Ukraine, and in Poland, and massacre them. They rounded some up and sent them off to the death camps, and some of them they just shot on the spot. And a lot of the people in Ukraine regard him as the father of Ukraine, or a great leader, because they wanted nothing to do with the Soviet Union, and he's the one who was leading the push for them to become their own country. This whole thing was centered in Lviv, but he was eventually taken out by the KGB, I think, or some Soviet police. His ideology lived. It stayed. So these people were Nazis. They were anti-Jewish. They were all about the white race, racist guns, racist sacks of shit. And their ideology lived to this day. So in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass, Luhansk, you have people who are not for this ideology, who are against a lot of this. And that's one of the primary reasons why this whole thing popped off. Why, since 2014, the Ukrainian government, Zelensky government, was attacking his own people in eastern Ukraine, Donbass, Luhansk, because they're Banderites. These people follow the message of their leader who died back in the 50s. This Nazi ideology never died. And a lot of people haven't even heard of this man, but Putin knows him well. Let's look at what he had to say.
We see the Bandera supporters and neo-Nazis deploy heavy weapons, including multiple launch rocket systems. Moreover, they put these bastards like Bandera on a pedestal. They don't want communism? Fine. Who wants that today? They are throwing the founder of Ukraine, Lenin, off his pedestal. Okay, this is up to them. but they are putting Bandera up there. As today's heroes in Ukraine, the Holocaust means killing 6 million Jews, 1.5 million of which were in Ukraine, and primarily at the hands of Bandera followers. Once again, I appeal to the Ukrainian soldiers. Do not allow neo-Nazis and Banderites to use your children, your wives, and the elderly as human shields. This is Bandera and his minions. These are the people who today are the heroes of Ukraine.
So millions of Ukrainians love Stepan Bandera. They have marches, parades in his honor. They have songs in his honor. In fact, let's look at this parade right here.
Він герой України, який боровся за нас, і дуже важливо пам'ятати його, і вшановувати його пам'ять і те, що він робив.
Слава! 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 Слава!
Єдино актуальні ідеї на сьогодні – це ідеї Степана Бандери абсолютної перемоги, без жодних компромісів і тотальної боротьби до остаточної перемоги.
Степан Бандера ще в 59-му році казав, що у своєму інтерв'ю про те, що західні держави
Over 15,000 Ukrainians march in the street. They got pictures of him, portraits. They're singing to him. They're referencing his ideology, calling him father. All that Nazi, Aryan race, white power, crusade, all that crap that he was pushing, the Holocaust and all that, they support what he did. They honor what he did. The Ukrainians who moved to Canada and to America, they have statues of this man in North America. Let's take a look at them. These are the people who are receiving this money. And let's go back to this term. I mentioned this in a couple of videos before. That term, Slava Ukraini, Slava Ukraine, it dates back to Bandera. It dates back to the Holocaust, to World War II. You can make some references where it was used previously, but this is the primary way it was used. It was used when these Ukrainian Nazis were fighting the Soviet Union and when they were killing Jews in the Holocaust. So when these people walk around chanting Slava Ukraine, when General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on public TV, says Slava Ukraine, he's referencing an anti-Semitic war cry from the 1930s and 40s. When these people get on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and they type Slava Ukraine, do they know what they're pushing? Do they know that they're pushing a anti-Semitic Nazi war cry? Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. So this is what Stepan Bandera and his people push. But I believe even when these people find out, if they ever find out exactly what the hell they're saying, they're not going to care because a lot of them are in bed with these Nazis. A lot of them are Nazis themselves or Nazi sympathizers. And a lot of them just don't care. A lot of people don't care about history. They don't care to understand what led up to where we are today and what exactly is going on. So here's the bottom line of the thing. This war between Ukraine and Russia is decades old. Dates all the way back to before World War II actually popped off because Bandera them were trying to get away from the Soviet Union before them. And Ukraine and Russia in general go back over 1,000 years. Centuries before George Washington was even born, Ukraine and Russia had issues. Kyiv and Moscow had issues. So this Slavic civil war over there in Eastern Europe shouldn't be an American problem, but the United States is heavily involved in it. The United States is a belligerent in it using Ukraine as a proxy because the United States has larger interests. So they don't care how many Ukrainians die as long as it can serve the purpose of the Americans. Or the Americans in power anyway, because the regular Americans, they're not going to see any of this money. But yeah, Nazis in Ukraine, that's a thing. So if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a like, share it, and I'll see you guys next time.